December 31, 2006, the British Treasury quietly sent $83 million to the United States government. There were no headlines, no ceremonies, no speeches. That payment closed a debt opened in 1946, officially ending Britain's World War II obligations 61 years after the war was already won. 3 generations of British taxpayers paid interest to America for the privilege of surviving Hitler. But that debt was never about victory. It was the price America charged Britain to stay alive long enough to win. And the interest payments were only the visible layer. The real extraction happened during the war itself. Between 1940 and 1945, the United States carried out the largest peaceful transfer of wealth in human history, not from an enemy, but from an ally. Britain entered World War II as the world's dominant financial power. Britain exited the war bankrupt, asset stripped, indebted, and permanently displaced as a global empire. This wasn't charity, this wasn't generosity. It was financial warfare disguised as friendship. Before the war, Britain was not weak. In 1939, it was the largest creditor nation on Earth. The British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the planet's land surface. British citizens owned railroads in South America, mines in Africa, oil in the Middle East, and plantations across Asia. London was the financial center of the world. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Britain held massive gold reserves. This was not a declining power begging for help, yet within 7 months of war, Britain was broke. The reason wasn't Germany alone. It was America's rules. When war broke out, the United States declared neutrality. Congress passed the Neutrality Acts to keep America out of foreign wars. But buried inside was a clause that would financially destroy Britain: cash and carry. Britain could buy American weapons, but only if it paid cash up front and transported everything itself. No loans, no credit, no mercy. Britain had no alternative. It needed American steel, oil, aircraft, and ammunition. So it paid. To do that, Britain launched Operation Fish. Its gold reserves, bars, securities, national wealth were shipped across the U-boat-infested Atlantic to North America. By late 1940, the vaults were empty. The bills kept coming. On December 8, 1940, Winston Churchill wrote to Franklin Roosevelt. History teaches this letter as a desperate plea between allies. In reality, it was an admission of insolvency. Britain wasn't struggling. Britain wasn't low on cash. Britain was bankrupt. The Treasury could no longer pay for American supplies. This letter wasn't asking for help. It was negotiating the terms of Britain's liquidation. This is where the myth of Lend-Lease begins. We retold America lent Britain weapons the way a neighbor lends a garden hose during a fire. That story was fiction. Behind closed doors, Lend-Lease was engineered by Henry Morgenthau Jr., the U.S. Treasury Secretary, and before a single dollar flowed, he had one demand. Britain had to prove it was completely broke. Morgenthau demanded a full audit of every British asset worldwide: government assets, private assets, foreign investments, everything. Britain was fighting Nazi Germany while being forced to open its financial records to a foreign treasury. British negotiators warned this would cause fire sale losses. Morgenthau didn't care. If Britain still had assets, he argued, why should American taxpayers pay? The proof came with American Viscose Corporation, a major U.S. industrial company owned by British interests. Morgenthau demanded its immediate sale. Britain resisted, knowing that selling under duress would be financial suicide. The ultimatum followed: sell the company or Lend-Lease dies in Congress. Britain seized the company under emergency powers and sold it at half its real value. American buyers knew Britain had no leverage. The proceeds went straight to the U.S. Treasury. This wasn't cooperation, it was foreclosure. And it didn't stop there. Britain was forced to liquidate over $1 billion in U.S. investments. A century of accumulated wealth was transferred to American hands at distressed prices. Only after the liquidation was complete did Lend-Lease funds begin flowing. Even before Lend-Lease, Britain had already paid another price. In 1940, desperate for naval protection, Britain agreed to the destroyers' 4 bases deal. 50 obsolete U.S. destroyers, barely seaworthy, were exchanged for 99-year leases on British military bases across the Atlantic and Caribbean. Those bases became the foundation of American global military power. Britain gave up strategic control of entire regions for rusting ships. That wasn't diplomacy, it was pawning an empire. Lend-Lease passed in March 1941. Buried inside was Article 7. Britain agreed to eliminate discriminatory trade practices after the war. In plain language, imperial preference had to die. Imperial preference was the economic glue holding the empire together. Removing it meant exposing British industry to superior American competition. The British negotiators understood exactly what this meant, but German bombs were falling. So Britain signed. By 1945, the transformation was complete. America held most of the world's gold. The dollar replaced the pound. U.S. industry dominated global markets. Then, just days after Japan surrendered, the United States cut Lend-Lease instantly. No warning, no transition. Ships already at sea were ordered to turn back. Britain faced economic collapse. Imports stopped. Food supplies were at risk. Starvation loomed. There was only one option left: a loan. John Maynard Keynes went to Washington. He asked for a grant. America offered a loan, $3.75 billion, with interest. And one fatal condition: sterling convertibility. Anyone holding pounds could exchange them for dollars. Keynes warned it would be catastrophic. He was right. When convertibility began in 1947, the world rushed to dump pounds. Britain burned through a quarter of the loan in weeks. Convertibility was suspended. The damage was permanent. By 1947, Britain could no longer afford its global role. It withdrew from Greece and Turkey. America stepped in. The Truman Doctrine was born. The British Empire wasn't conquered, it was replaced. The final humiliation was the debt itself, paid year after year until 2006. This story isn't about hating America, it's about understanding power. Modern empires aren't built with invading armies, they're built with contracts, debt, liquidity crises, and aid with conditions. Britain wasn't defeated by Germany, Britain was dismantled financially by its ally while fighting for survival. The empire wasn't lost in battle, it was sold under pressure, and the same playbook is still being used today.